So some people are actually asking, this is a request. Some people are asking, like, why are there very few concerts that go to countries, even though specifically this is about BTS, because BTS is popular in many many other countries, like for example in India, but they've never been there, and it's only lately that international acts actually started going to India. But then there's also Africa. They are barely visited by musical acts. So for us to understand, let's first understand how an artist actually gets paid when they do a tour. Usually, they do per show. So an artist will already, in their contract when they tour, they already set their price. For example, in the Las Vegas residency of U2, they earned 1 million every day. Every day that they have a concert, they earn 1 million. And then the last time that they toured, it's the same thing. And I think it's the same thing for Ed Sheeran when he did his world tour. It was per concert. So flat fee, and then he doesn't care, but like if you earn more, then that's your, like for the promoter of the concert, if you earn more, then that is yours, but I demand 1 million. That's what happens. Now they said that it's actually a little different for the Eras tour of Taylor Swift, because she got paid um based on the ticket sales. Um, so depending on how much she, well, this is hearsay. She will never confirm it. She had the minimum, and then anything over and above a certain amount, she gets a portion of that. So, for example, in Era Store, this Forbes article states that um, Swift has grossed nearly 110 million. This was early in her tour. 110 million from this performances so far, after paying concert promoter, Messina touring group, and production costs. Okay, so after paying all of them, she has 110 million on her hand. But that's not what she'll personally deposit in the bank. She still has to pay taxes, expenses. Her manager usually gets 10%. If you have an agent, that's another 10%. And then you have taxes and whatever. And taxes probably about 20 to 30%, depending on your how you're paying your taxes and whatever. So when the bills are paid, Forbes actually estimated that she had earned roughly 30 million from the Eras tour performance. This was early in the, I think not even first half of the tour. So she net her net worth went up 780 million. Okay, so that's how they get paid, knowing that they either have a minimum or they have a set talent fee, a fee for a concert tour. The promoter will then have um, a target for the gross amount that they need to earn, right? So for every concert, they need to sell a certain number of tickets and or get sponsors in order to make sure that the artist is paid and that they pay all the expenses. Okay. So how do they know if there is street market demand? They have different tools, different research tools. The most important as of the moment is streaming and sales data. So artists and their teams check different streaming platforms like Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, and Billboard charts to see where their music is most streamed and most purchased. So if you would remember, Spotify Wrapped actually featured um, different cities in the world and what are the top songs that were being played. So now we know that for Saudi Arabia, it's Who. Number one is Who. Um, Iraq, it's also Who. Number two is Standing Next to You. Number five is Like Crazy. Uh, seven is number three. So based on this, we kind of know that, okay, so for Saudi Arabia, we know that Jimin and Jungkook are popular, and Taeyong. Um, Now, the thing that we do need to consider is that the other members of BTS did not release any song this year except for RM. So, but for the period it was being measured, these are the ones that went on top. So this is actually a very important indicator for the management companies and for the promoter. And that is why um, they they want to remain faithful to the data as much as possible. That's why they don't like VPN, for example, because it does not reflect accurate information as to how popular an act is in a certain country. So it could mislead their data. So they might think that there are 10 million streams from the US when in fact there were only 500, and the rest it was just VPN trying to help their artists get to the number one spot of Billboard Hot 100. So they try to do it as accurately as possible when it comes to the geography of users. Okay, so that's one. Next is the economic considerations. Artists and of course their teams check Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, and Billboard charts to see where their music is most streamed and purchased. Sorry. Okay. So for example, in this is an article about the concert industry, live music industry, or live performance industry in India. So they said this talks about the different hindrances as to why an artist doesn't usually go to India for a concert. And that includes economic reasons, lack of infrastructure, meaning they don't have venues that can actually meet the demands of many international artists. And we will go further into that in a bit. Nigeria is another consideration. That's another consideration in Nigeria. They are saying that tickets are actually getting more and more expensive. So, for example, a ticket in the US here. Okay, so this is this is a quote from the article about India. So Vardan says, Vardan, I think, is the promoter from a concert promoter. He owns one of the companies that promotes concert. And he said that in the West, a ticket for an A-list star is priced $100 onwards. This is very cheap, but this was also quite an old article. So he said that in the US, that's $100 onwards. That's how much a ticket will cost. Um, Tickets in India is about 1,500 their currency, not the US currency. So the difference is so huge that there is absolutely no way an artist will come here and earn only a tenth of what they're usually earning when they are doing shows in the US. Now, they can't go up and match the ticket price of US because they don't have the economic means to do so. So that is the biggest hindrance for them. There may be a demand, but they can't pay for it. They can't afford paying for the ticket. Now, another thing that they measure is through another way they measure the demand or ticket sales in advance is through concert pre-registration and ticket waitlist. Now, in for BTS, they do it via Weavers. That's why they ask you to put your country or phone number. That's why it's important for them to know where to deliver your goods because it tells them where the concentration of the fans are. Okay. Another thing that they do need to consider is local promoters and venue partners. Okay, so back to that article, it says that Wizcraft is a concert promoter in India, and they said that the challenges remain boggling. The logistics, security, licenses, and red tape. Okay, licenses and red tape. You do need to deal with that if you're a concert promoter because you do need to get fees, permits, from the government, and there is red tape in any country that you go to. So all of these things hinder the artist and the concert promoter from going into a country. Also, they need local promoters, meaning they need somebody in the area that will get the word out and make sure that the tickets are getting sold. Okay, that's one. Or that they can get sponsors that will cover the cost even before sales tickets are getting sold. For example, even before tickets are sold. So for example, Taylor Swift Eras Tour was actually presented by Capital One. It's one of the major sponsors of Eras Tour, Capital One. So they paid a lot of money. So the for example, they shouldered the $1 million. This is just an example that Taylor Swift is asking for. Then whatever they sell in it, when it comes to the tickets, that's just an additional income for them. That's net revenue for them because they've already paid half of what they need to pay for capital expense. Um, for Beyonce's Renaissance tour, Lexus was a partner, and so was Tiffany and Co. Okay. So this sponsors, this company, since they were the sponsor of the tour, then they pay a certain amount because it's advertising for them. So that's an advantage for the promoter if somebody's going to sponsor because they are paying in advance. Whatever they sell for tickets, that is additional income for them, or at least they have less bills to pay because part of it will be already covered by the sponsor. Okay, so if you're a promoter a promoter of a concert in a country, or if you are the manager of an artist, you want guaranteed sales, right? So you want to make sure that when your artist goes on the stage, it's actually sold out. So guaranteed sales is what they want. Now, again, if your country does not have the means to pay for expensive tickets, then how can you guarantee a sold out concert? You won't, right? Okay. Next is industry report and market research. So before anybody goes into a venue, a country, a city, they make sure that they have an industry report that will give them an indication whether or not there are fans that are willing to pay for concert tickets to watch the act. Okay, so for example, um, now that India is actually slowly opening their country, or at least starting to become attractive to international players, they come up with research materials to prove to different acts that it's now good for them to come to India for a stop. The Coldplay concert that just happened, it's a case study for them because they sold out the venue. So and the ticket price wasn't bad. So now they can present it to other acts and say, you have a market here and the market can pay. Okay. There is an increase of 18% year on year. And they now have a total of 30,687 live events, but 99.5% of that, sorry, 89.5% of that are actually local artists. Yeah, Coldplay sold it out 4 times. The other thing is logistics. In India, it's a headache to do live concerts because they don't have venues that can support the technical demands of concerts of different artists. If you would remember, one of the most ambitious ever setup ever made is actually the concert of Suga. It was divided into 6 different platforms, and one platform would race in different stages of the venue. Sorry, in different stages of the concert, right? So halfway one, another, after 3 songs, another one goes up. Not all venues can actually support something like that. You want to make sure that it is safe. After all, Suga is under that platform, right? He's performing. So you don't want that falling or anything like that. So it has to be secure. And then just the technical capacity to actually have that kind of a stage go up. So, many venues, they said, according to the article, in India, it's rare that there is a venue that advanced. It seems so simple, but it's actually very advanced. Next is local talents. Not so, for example, for Beyonce, she likes keeping the same dancers throughout her tour, which is easier for her because she's only touring in the US. But if you're somebody like Taylor Swift, who's actually touring around the world, or Coldplay, then that becomes a little bit more complicated because if you have, for example, 30 people, 30 dancers in your team, you're going to have to fly and arrange for accommodation and arrange their visa for each of that, right? So if it's a complicated process for you to process the visas of everybody, and you're a Beyonce who will not compromise and want the same team all throughout, then might as well not do it in that country. The other option, so Yoongi also did this. Like he had each of August Lee, he had each of the members of his band travel with him all over the world. In the entire tour, he actually was just with one set of group, one set of one band. So they had to arrange for accommodation, for work visa. And then the other thing is, if, for example, an artist is actually willing to swap out dancers, for example, and look for local talents. Is there enough local talent that can actually perform at the level that you are expecting it? If you're a Beyonce, that's very very hard to do because she has a certain level of energy and skill that she's always looking for in her live performances, and she's Beyonce, so she can demand something like that. The other thing is infrastructure, which I kind of already mentioned here with Suga, for example. It has to be ready for you. The venue has to be ready. And it's not just the setup of the stages, but also the sound. Is it going to sound exactly like how you want it to sound? Or is it going to it will it provide you the kind of support that you need? Okay. The other thing is taxes and red tape, which I already mentioned. I know that not many actually talk about it, but there are a lot of countries who require for things to move, you need to pay them outside of the usual legal fees. And there are a lot of countries like that. Um, and it's different if the red tape is kind of organized. If you already know who you need to pay under the table, then it's easy that way. But we have encountered where you have to pay somebody to get things done, to get things approved, but nobody will tell you who you need to pay. And that is the worst situation because you're like, I'm willing to pay, just tell me who it is that I need to bribe. I will bribe. But yeah. Um, okay. So another thing is security. I'm reading your message, Mickey. I'll respond to you in a bit. Okay, and Bang Luna is actually here. I think she's still here. Okay, so but I saw your message. All right. The other thing is security. There are and it's not just security for the artist itself, right? But that is a consideration. You do need to secure the artist. But the other thing is that you need to secure everything else, um your equipment. When what's his name, who's this performer who likes play, Elton John, when he tours he brings his piano. He brings his, and I heard it's uh the purple piano that he likes bringing, and it is that one piano. So you do have to make sure that the country has the infrastructure and this enough security to make sure that you do not lose that piano. If you're a performer like Elton John, you're very particular about your stuff. Okay. And then political instability is a factor. Nobody wants to perform in a country when there is unrest, when it is not stable. Then there is no need to risk the life and the safety of the artist. Okay, the last thing is the schedule of the artist. You can't force an artist to go to a place when the schedule won't permit it, right? Like, for example, for J Hope, we know that he has to be back by June. I'm assuming that he wants to rest before before the reunion of the seven. So it's going to be a grueling 3 months for him. I'm assuming that he has other things going outside of the tour. So putting another continent in his schedule will have to be a it's a perfect storm essentially. So there's a lot that needs to come together for to make it possible. And the same thing is true in other parts of uh, of of Asia. He can't tour every country because it has to come together in his schedule. So, if, for example, this is just an example, he wants to go to India and there is a location, it's the only location where it's going to work, but it's not available in view of his general schedule, then he can't go. So, we do need to understand that. Um, we need to give J Hope some leeway when it comes to him not being able to go to every country where we want him to visit. He's limited with time. We don't know his real intention behind this concert. Maybe he's trying things out for a bigger concert after the reunion of BTS, right? So maybe that's why he prefers smaller venues, because he wants to try things out. For it's going to be his first tour that is just his. So he's going to experiment a lot. He's going to learn a lot of things about the countries, about performing alone, and all of those stuff. So that's, in other words, let's cut him some slack when it comes to the venues. And when it comes, I'm disappointed because I wasn't able to get tickets yet. I'm manifesting I will get it too. I will get some for LA. um but let's be easy on him, and like, let's try to just celebrate that he's actually doing a tour, instead of continuously criticizing him for not dropping by a certain country or a certain continent. uh, let's try to make the positive and the celebration louder than the disappointment.